Good afternoon and welcome to Spectrum Television News at noon. I am Uyai Imam, come to you live from Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom State, Nigeria. Let's take a look at the headlines. President Tinubu orders immediate execution of infrastructural projects nationwide. House of Representatives probe 1.12 trillion naira anchor borrowers program spending. Plus, New Zealand approves medicinal use of magic mushrooms. We'll bring you details of these stories and more in a moment. Good afternoon and thanks for joining us. We begin the news this afternoon from the national scene where President Bola Tinubu has ordered the immediate execution of all approved infrastructural projects nationwide. A statement shared by Vice President Kashim Shettima said that the president gave the order at the 2025 Nigeria Public-Private Partnership Summit with the theme Unlocking Nigeria's Potential, the role of public-private partnerships in delivering the renewed hope agenda. The summit was organized by the Infrastructure Concession Regulatory Commission (ICRC) in Abuja. The president said his administration remained determined to deliver infrastructure that is both sustainable and inclusive, cautioning against any delays caused by bureaucratic hurdles. Represented by Shatima, he said the federal government planned to fast-track approvals for viable projects and intensify coordination among ministries, departments, and agencies to ensure rapid implementation. Tinubu further acknowledged existing challenges within Nigeria's project implementation culture, observing that the country's potential has not always been matched by action. He said the current administration had taken measures to streamline bureaucratic processes and improve transparency in the public-private engagement framework. From the Red Chambers, the Senate's ad hoc committee on the emergency rule in Rivers State has commenced the screening of nominees for the Rivers State Independent Electoral Commission (RCEC), with major points of contention emerging over the nomination of Michael Ode as the chairman of the electoral body. Ode, a native of Cross River State, came under scrutiny from the panel chaired by Senate Leader Opeyemi Bamidele over his non-indigenous status, particularly as he hails from the same state as the sole administrator of River State, Ibok Essien Ibaz. While defending his eligibility, Ode said his nomination does not contravene any provisions of the RSREC enabling law. However, Senator Bamidele expressed reservations, noting that even if the law is silent on the matter, the implications of appointing someone from outside the state must be carefully considered. Now to the Green Chambers, where the House of Representatives Committee on Nutrition and Food Security has commenced a probe into the 1.12 trillion naira spent on the Anchor Borrowers Program (ABP). The committee is also probing the National Microfinance Bank for 215 billion naira. Now to the Green Chambers, where the House of Representatives Committee on Nutrition and Food Security has commenced a probe into the 1.12 trillion naira spent on the Anchor Borrowers Program (ABP). The committee is also probing the National Microfinance Bank for 215 billion naira spent on agribusinesses as well as agricultural value chain financing program. The chairman of the committee, Chike Okafor, during an investigative hearing on the alleged misuse of government interventions and agricultural funding by departments, agencies, and schemes and programs of the federal government, raised concern that of the 24 participating financial institutions who disbursed the amount for the APB, the only had evidence of nine of the institutions. He said one of the key oversight mandates of the committee is to ensure proper implementation of intervention programs by relevant MDAs of government related to food security and nutrition. Of CDS Christopher Musa has highlighted three critical issues in the Yelwata town, Benue State's massacre by suspected headsmen. The CDS spoke when he visited Benue over the spark in killings at Benue communities. According to him, there are three-pronged issues to the Benue crisis between farmers and herders, namely land dispute and cattle rustling. He noted that a political solution is the best fix to the three issues. In a related development, Benue State Governor Hyacinth Alia has called for community policing as a solution to the insecurity crisis currently rocking the state. Alia made the call while cautioning against affected communities resorting to self-defense. The governor warned that self-defense would make the communities vulnerable to more attacks. In another development, the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) has rejected the notice submitted by the People's Democratic Party (PDP) for its upcoming 100th National Executive Committee (NEC) meeting, citing a violation of procedural guidelines. INEC specifically referenced to Part 2, Sub 12.3, which mandates that the National Chairman and National Secretary of the party shall jointly sign the Notice of Convention, Congress, conference, or meeting and submit same to the Commission. The letter signed by the acting secretary to the Commission, Haji Aminu, stressed that the PDP's notice lacked the required joint endorsement. While the notification was submitted within the 21-day time frame required by law, it was reportedly signed only by the acting national chairman Umar Damagum without the co-signature of the national secretary Samuel Ayang. Away from that, the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board (JAM) has recommended tough penalties for 11 computer-based test CBT centers for the alleged involvement in fingerprint irregularities during registration for this year's Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination. Also to be penalized are registration centers that had more than 50 candidates with fingerprint irregularities. The sanctions are, however, subject to approval by the Minister for Education, Tunji Alausa. The Registrar and Chief Executive of JAM, Professor Aisha Koloede, made this known after a stakeholder meeting on examination infractions in Abuja yesterday. Oloede explained that the penalties are intended to protect the integrity of the examination process. Moving on to Africa, where South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has concluded his visit to the G7 summit held in Canada. According to the South African presidency, Ramaphosa strengthened ties with the host nation, Canada, and worked on strategic alignment with other G7 members. Although highly anticipated and floated by Ramaphosa prior to the summit, a bilateral meeting between the South African leader and US President Trump did not take place. Reports say the meeting would have come as a potential opportunity to improve relations after a disastrous White House visit by Ramaphosa in May, during which Trump accused South Africa without proof of committing a genocide against white South Africans. On the former scene, New Zealand has approved the medicinal use of cyclobine, a hallucinogenic compound notably found in so-called magic mushrooms. Deputy Prime Minister David Seymour said rules had been relaxed so psilocybin could be used to treat certain types of depression. Seymour said psilocybin is a naturally occurring psychedelic compound found in some species of mushrooms and can cause hallucinations and an altered state of mind. He noted that only psychiatrists who have been involved in psilocybin clinical trials will be allowed to prescribe it and must strictly report its use as well as keep detailed records. Still on the former scene, British lawmakers have voted to decriminalise abortion in England and Wales after a lawmaker argued it was cruel to prosecute women for ending a pregnancy. The House of Commons approved an amendment to a broader crime bill that would prevent women from being criminally punished under an antiquated law. The Labour Member of Parliament, Tonia Antoninasi, who introduced one of the amendments, said the change was needed because police have investigated more than 100 women for suspected illegal abortions over the past 5 years, including some who suffered natural miscarriages and stillbirths. The amendment passed 379 to 137. Still to come in the news. Super Falcons set to open camp in Portugal ahead of WAFCON 2024. Stay tuned for details of these and more in a moment. Thanks for staying tuned and now to the rest of the news story. On our business news, the Central Bank of Nigeria's directive to suspend dividend payments by banks has triggered concerns about its impact on bank stocks and the wider economy. The move has led to increased volatility and declining share prices in the banking sector, raising fears over recapitalization efforts and investor confidence. Meanwhile, market players urged caution and called for a balanced approach to regulation that safeguards both the stability of banks and market confidence, thereby supporting economic growth. Reports say the CBN's sweeping directive suspending dividend payments, deferring management bonuses, and halting offshore investments has jolted investor confidence in Nigeria's banking sector, with sharp reactions trailing the regulator's move across the Nigerian exchange and among industry watchers. Still in business, the Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria, IPMAN, has suspended its ongoing industrial action following the Lagos State government's decision to open dialogue with the association over the contentious 12,500 naira electronic call-up levy imposed on tankers along the Lekki-Ekpe corridor. In a directive issued to all zonal and depot units chairmen, the association said the move to suspend the strike followed a formal commitment by the state government to engage key stakeholders, including IPMAN's National Executive Committee and the Nigerian Association of Road Transport Owners, NATO, for an amiable resolution of the impasse. The strike action was initially triggered by the introduction of a new call-up levy and the accompanying levy, which operators had described as arbitrary and an additional burden on the cost of doing business. A statement signed by the association's National Secretary James Tolmon urged all members of IPMAN to remain united and vigilant while the leadership continues to negotiate a favorable outcome. On our health news, the Association of Community Pharmacists of Nigeria, ACPN, has called on President Bola Tinubu to urgently intervene in what it described as the growing domination of medical doctors in the health and education sectors. ACPN warned that such practices are detrimental to national development and inclusive governance. The pharmacists made this known in an open letter signed by their national chairman Ambrose Eze and his secretary Omokafe Asho. The letter further reports of industrial action by members of the Medical and Dental Consultants Association of Nigeria (MDCAN) at the University of Calabar, who downed tools over the appointment of a new vice chancellor. According to the ACPN, the protest is part of a wider trend referencing a similar situation at Nnamdi Azikiwe University, where the appointment of a vice chancellor was nullified by the Federal Ministry of Education because MDCAN members at the institution went on strike. Still in health, the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control (NAFDAC) has introduced new regulatory tools to intensify its campaign against falsified and substandard medical products in Nigeria. These include the NAFDAC Green Book, the 2024 Pharmaceutical Products Traceability Regulation, and the 2024 Pediatric Regulation. The two-day stakeholder sensitization workshop, which kicked off in Lagos, attracted key players across the medical, military, pharmaceutical, and regulatory sectors. NAFDAC DG Professor Mojisola Adeyeye, who was represented by Director Post Marketing Surveillance Freden Bitrus, said that the Green Book, an online database, allows anyone from pharmacist to patient to confirm whether a medical product is registered and approved by the agency. He described it as an online weapon against fake drugs, adding that the platform also aimed at empowering consumers and distributors to identify and reject counterfeit drugs, protecting lives across Nigeria's supply chain. Now to sports, where the Super Falcons of Nigeria will open camp in Portugal this week as they step up preparations for the 2024 Women's Africa Cup of Nations (WAFCON). Justine Madugu's side will also take on Portugal in a friendly on Monday, June 23rd. The highly anticipated encounter will serve as part of the team's preparation for the WAFCON 2024 finals. The nine-time champions will fly directly to Morocco from Portugal for the competition. Meanwhile, Nigeria's opening game against Tunisia will be held at the Labi Zauli Stadium in Casablanca, Sunday, July 6. Still in sports, champions Liverpool will host Bournemouth on the opening weekend of the 2025-2026 Premier League season, with Manchester United playing Arsenal at Old Trafford. Liverpool, who won the league in Arne Slot's first season in charge, will begin their title defense at Anfield in the curtain raiser on Friday, August 15. Meanwhile, newly promoted Sunderland, back in the top flight for the first time since 2016-2017, will start their campaign at home against West Ham the following day. And last on the news at this hour in entertainment, Afrobeat star Iyanya has released a new song dedicated to the victims of the recent attacks in Benue State. The attacks, which occurred in Yelawata in Gumaleku government area, reportedly resulted in the deaths of over 200 people. In his emotional tribute, Iyanya consoled the people of Benue, praying for divine intervention and healing. He encouraged the victims and their families to hold onto their faith, believing that God can turn their sorrow into joy. And that's all we have on the news out this hour. Do well to follow us on social media, subscribe to our YouTube channel, all of which you can find on our website, spectrumtvlive.ng. This has been Spectrum Television News at Noon. I am Uyai MM. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day. Good afternoon.